Welcome back to Aeos Clubhouse, the Decidui release episode. I'm Kyle Ferguson. I am joined by my fabulous hosts. Let's start with Mockery. Mockery, how are you?
Hello, I am good. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited about today's episode. What's up with you, Kai Berries?
Hello, I am also excited about today's episode. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
It's a pleasure having you all join us here on the eve of holiday for the Americans in the room, which is all of us. So we are going to be talking about Decidui almost exclusively for this episode. We got some emails, we got a little bit of strategy, but the bird is upon us. In more way than one. Yeah. Thanksgiving, the bird.
Yeah, that's a good bird. Good.
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay, excellent.
I totally didn't get it until you spelled it out. And we were just talking about Thanksgiving and more specifically turkey mere seconds ago before we started recording. All right.
Well, let's just dive into it this week because it was the topic of the now. Decidui has entered the stadium, and I think we're all in agreement looking at the notes here that things be squishy.
Yeah. Decidui, it's basically in the exact same boat as I made several references to it last time, and I feel like from initially seeing the characters kit and seeing some of their abilities and whatnot, and then actually getting to play, it does feel, in my opinion, pretty similar to Ashe from League of Legends in that you are ridiculously turbo squishy and not very mobile, but you do kind of fulfill that classic range damage, attack damage carry that just sort of pews really hard. And always really feels good when they've got someone else securing their position and securing their safety because you are turbo squishy. Like, you have the exact same defensive stats in HP, special defense, and regular defense, the exact same as a Greninja. And Greninja is one of the squishiest characters in the entire game, but at least Greninja, you've got stealth, you've got dashes, you've got clones, you've got self-heal on multiple abilities. Well, on one at a time, but you're always going to have self-heal in your build. And Decidui doesn't really have that. So yeah, Decidui definitely feels like a lot of fun, but very, very squish.
I played Monday. I'm trying to remember what day it is. They all just blend together. But I played them like my entire stream Monday, and I had a lot of fun, and I felt really strong, but I also exploded a lot. But even the games where I felt like I was getting punished, when I went and looked at the stats afterwards, like the full stats, I did twice as much damage as anyone. Like, even though I lost, the winning team's top 2 damage together combined would do less damage than me. It's when you can attack and you have like a decent front line or you're not getting dove on, it's just insane how much damage it can do. It feels really good.
Interesting. I definitely noticed my main takeaway from the week was just draft mistakes. I saw a lot of Decidui lose because they ended up getting there's a Cramorant in one game, or they'd be too squishy, or they'd have a Talonflame, or even a Sylveon. Like anything that didn't add to the CC crowd control slowing stunning pile left Decidui very vulnerable.
Yeah, in
general, you go.
Okay. There's this composition that I saw a while ago that I've always been so enchanted with after it just thoroughly stomped myself and my friends. That was double support, where they had a full focus on AoE damage and team fight damage, and just strictly enabling 5-on-5s. And thus almost only fighting when it was a team fight at any of the bosses, Dreadnought, Rotom, Zapdos. And I feel like you could just insert Decidui into that exact kind of comp, where you have multiple people whose job it is to just make sure that Decidui is okay, and not getting knocked out at all and has their space to work with. And then Decidui is there to bear the brunt of the offensive load. That seems definitely like something that could be viable, if not very good. And it's a super classic MOBA archetype of a composition. It's commonly called 4 Protect 1, or in Here's the Storm, it was often just called double support, where you've got the 4 that enable the 1. The 4 are utility, their survivability, their CC, their peel, all that good stuff, and then one person is just out there getting to live the turret chopper gunner dream of their life, you know. I say as a kid, you know, Chopper Gunner was always the Call of Duty kill streak we always like to get. And that one person just gets to, you know, just put out all the DPS while they've got 4 other people enabling them, which is a really unique experience in MOBAs that I think everybody should try. Like, getting to be the guy who the whole comp is built around enabling is just a super fun experience. And I think Decidueye can just be inserted right into those kinds of comps as the carry that those 4 people are all enabling, and that could be a super fun playstyle.
You said chopper kill?
Yeah. So it was like Call of Duty, you know, you get a couple kills in a row without dying and you get different rewards. And the one back when I was growing up, and this is like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I want to say, around then, the Chopper Gunner was the big one. It was something like you got 11 kills in a row without dying. You'd get to just be up in the sky with shooting out of a chopper was the big thing. And you weren't concerned about providing utility. You weren't concerned about providing vision. You were just there to just out of the sky. You know, that was your point. And that's what I was saying. It could feel like to play Decidueye inside one of these double support 4 Protect 1 comps that has, just like you said, heroes contributing to the CC pile, enabling you to be your best self, trusting you to put in you know, the majority of the offensive load, because this seems to be a character that can when enabled.
I've got up on screen here for the video crowd a spectate of a Masters Decidueye, which I'm so excited about because it's been rare. So I wonder if, just by nature of not being able to find one until just now live, that this character is not being played in Masters much.
That would not surprise me. I know that I have had a tough time specifically finding various characters for like master replays, master spectating, and all that. And I've actually thought to myself, and I was talking with a caster friend of mine, I was like, dude, you know what'd be cool is like, for a stream, we just boot up current replays of like the top players and we just commentate those live on Twitch as they're happening. And it does sound like it would be a lot of fun, but I feel like it would get a little samey kind of quickly because master players love to play the same few characters. Ever since the spectate feature has come out, nearly every time you go in and open that menu, I can already guarantee before you open it, you're going to see some Zeraora, you're going to see some Greninja, and you're going to see some Lucario. And so I think that there's definitely a strong sense of meta. And I mean, part of that is that there's nothing really forcing you to change your pick. If you have a 5-stack and you have a strategy you like, there's literally nothing stopping you from just running the same strategy literally every single game. With no draft phase, with no bans. The only thing prohibiting you from playing a certain character is the behavior of your teammates. So if your teammates are all on board, and even a lot of times when they're not, you can still end up just playing the same characters over and over and over again. So I do think that that can sort of impose everybody just picking whatever seems to be the currently optimal strategy and very little divergence away from that. But I have seen some competitive Unite players who very strictly focus a lot on experimentation, but I do think that in general, with how the ranked mode works and its lack of draft, you end up seeing just most of the same characters over and over and over again constantly. So even if we don't see a lot of Decidueye at Masters, I wouldn't necessarily take that as the character being strictly bad, because like I said, I think it can get a little samey at those high ranks.
That's a great point. Yeah, so it's not tried and true yet, and in the coming weeks we may see Decidueye be more popular. And this particular one we're watching is basically in charge of the entire jungle and is being given all of it, and they've got a beautiful rotation going on. It's really cool to see a range character do this. I'm so used to, doing it on Gengar, who's very short range, or watching a Absol get through it. watching Decidueye fire over the tops of these mesas, cliffs. Cliffs is reverse, so yeah, maybe a mesa would be the right word. These little walls, and not having to take any damage at all is pretty good for the jungle.
Oh yeah, I mean, just the speed at which Decidueye can farm is really nice, especially because Razorleaf, I compared it to Runon's Hurricane last time we had an episode, and I got to see what Razorleaf did. For the unaware, that's Decidueye's ability that allows you to hit multiple enemies with your auto attacks. I thought that would just be like, oh, in a circle around your target, you hit a couple other people that are close to that target. No, Razorleaf is you auto everything that's in auto attack range. So you have the ability to very reasonably in the jungle, you can pull one crab towards you, pull another crab towards you, and pull the buff, and you're now clearing 3 different jungle camps at the same time with Razorleaf. And you factor in that you've got pretty high damage output, especially once you get those boosted attacks rolling. And you now have a character that just turbo farms camps. You are shredding bees, you're shredding the jungle camp, and just like you said, you're not even really taking damage while doing it either. So the ability to very quickly and efficiently build up a lot of ult charge for yourself and build up a lot of XP, turn in, and then just get right back into the action is super, super cool. Like it definitely feels really good to just sort of slip away for a second and I was only gone for a few seconds and now all these camps are gone. What are you gonna do? It's a good feeling.
Kyberries, you said you got to pretty well marathon the character. Was it open and available?
Yeah, in standard, I only had like maybe 2 games where I didn't get Decidueye. It wasn't really contested at all, so that was nice. And I didn't see them super like maybe every other game on the enemy team. So it's been a couple days since he came out. Maybe the hype is died down a little bit. When I switched to ranked, I did generally see one every game, which is kind of like opposite of what you're describing. But yeah, I got to play a lot of games on it.
So you mentioned the squish that we've been talking about. Was there anything else that really stood out to you?
I really liked the games where I had, well, obviously having like any sort of front line, since it was standard, often it was just 5 damage dealers and like you do your best. But I had a couple games that fortunately got real comps with like a tank and a healer. And anytime I had Blissey, and I know I have not been like a Blissey fan in the past, but Blissey is what is it? Helping Hand that gives the movement speed and attack speed. That's pretty fun on an auto attack character.
Yeah. That's
that's just zooming around with the movement speed and like even more attack speed.
Yeah, that is Helping Hand. Correct.
Yeah, that was fun. I had that happen, I think, 2 times where somebody picked a Blissey and then took Helping Hand and hung around with me. What lane I was in was totally random because it's standard, so everybody's just fighting over jungle. So it's like, are you going to be top? Are you going to be bottom? Who knows? But both of those times I was bottom with the Blissey, and I just had a delightful time in those games.
It just seems like such a natural pairing. I mean,
yeah. So for your double support comp, make one of them Blissey. I feel like it would be really good.
There's only so many supports in the game, and let alone only so many that even heal in the first place.
That's true. You're just gonna have both of them anyway, I guess. So, do you want Eldegoss and Blissey, or Blissey and Eldegoss?
Exactly. It just feels like such a natural pairing. Because in League of Legends, it's very common for characters that have this exact kind of design to always be paired with a support that will always lane with them and help keep them up for these kind of damage trades and compensate for their lack of mobility and survivability. And then add in that what Decidueye really, really needs is mobility and the ability to resist CC and just have some kind of self-sustain. And those are all the things that Blissey provides. So I think just in general, that is a duo that has a lot of potential right now. Probably a high skill floor duo of Decidueye and Blissey, in that you're both definitely going to need to be on the ball a bit about what you're doing. I feel like you have to be good at those individual characters. But if you've got that communication with each other and that good positioning, I could totally see you just absolutely dominating games consistently with that combo right there. It's a time-tested, proven pairing. to pair the ADC with the support like that, and their kits just intersect really, really well together.
So the question I have about Decidueye then is, did it feel too bad to lose? You were talking about a lot of power and a lot of comp restriction. Was it fun to lose on?
I guess it's never fun to lose, but I didn't have a lot of games where I felt bad about losing. I think I only had one game that I truly felt like this game was awful, like delete it. Because like I said, I felt like I was impactful. I felt like I was shredding people, even if we weren't winning the team fights or winning the games. And then I would go look at my numbers and be like, yeah, I certainly hit a lot of things. We didn't win, but I contributed something. So very rarely did I feel like I was completely useless. I certainly had a use. If we couldn't bring it together in the game, that's another thing. But I contributed.
See, I feel it's just such an interesting line of questioning to me, because I feel like the constant problem that games tend to have is that everybody just wants to play damage. That damage is the most fun thing, and that it's really hard trying to convince people that it's fun to play tank or support. And so, you know, it's like asking, well, do you enjoy losing on it? And it's like, well, I feel like you would, in a lot of players at least, as demonstrated throughout various different genres of gaming over the past several decades, a lot of players would rather lose on damage than win on tank, if we're being honest.
Fair.
We've seen it represented in the draft phase very, very often. We've seen it represented in every game that we've ever seen. Which is part of why Deep Rock Galactic is a really good game, by the way, because it splits the damage and utility roles between every class. So you can never pick a pure utility or pure damage. But I digress. I got a shill for that game.
It's a good game to shill for. Like, of all of them out there, like, hey, go for it.
Yeah. And so, you know, just based off the patterns that we see, I can't help but feel like we've already gotten the answer to your question of if it's fun to lose on. Hey, people at least prefer it because of the patterns that we've seen with everyone's propensity for playing damage over the years.
Very good, very good. Makes sense. So let's talk abilities a little bit. I mean, before we do, there is some stolen homework memes about the Greninja stats, and they're very true. We've got the exact same HP, defense, special attack, special defense, but the attack was decreased slightly from 146 to 125, likely because of the intense range. We're talking about these abilities really hammering. Has to make things easier for balance. We watched a game called Heroes of the Storm almost strive to be overly unique for years and struggle with balance in that way. Do you like the copy homework stats that we're seeing in Pokemon Unite?
I don't think they're inherently problematic. You know, like, I don't think that necessarily indicates that something is wrong. And I feel like I would need to think there's an issue to have an issue with it. You know what I mean? Like, if it ain't broke, you know what I'm saying? So it's a little bit of an interesting way to sort of homogenize the squishies into all having pretty similar stats. But is that even a bad thing? You know, like yes, it's copy and pasted, but I think that there are some areas where it is really good to be original, and some areas where it's really, really good to either save time or learn from others. And like I say this all the time with companies, you want to be, or not with companies, with games, I should say, more specifically. You want to be original when it comes to the feel of your game, to the art, to the, the play style, all that good stuff, the characters. And you want to just steal when it comes to functionality. When it comes to stuff that other games made work, and when it comes to functionality, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can learn the lessons that they did while still providing your own unique spin on gameplay. And I think that Unite does absolutely that, you know, like in areas where creativity wouldn't really make that big of a difference. I think that it's okay to just kind of not put as much of an emphasis on it. and focus on making the things that are actually unique about your game different, rather than just sort of difference for the sake of it. Like I always said, Heroes of the Storm felt like it was simultaneously reinventing the wheel, both in terms of the gameplay feel of it, which was a really good place to reinvent the wheel, but also in just terms of basic functionality, which is like, no, we know what works from a sense of functionality. We don't need to like try something new and all that. We can learn from other companies in that regard, other game companies. And so I think kind of the same thing is going on here. Like I would need to be convinced that that's a problem, and I could see the argument for it potentially. But at the moment, who cares? You know, some of the stats are the same in my opinion.
Sure. Kai Berry's dissenting opinions?
No, actually, just strong agree. If it's not causing a problem, I don't need to make it a problem. You know what I mean? I don't. And off the top of my head, I can't come up with a problem that two characters have the same like baseline stats. Like what? I don't feel like it matters a super lot.
Certainly with the abilities and the playstyle being so different.
Yeah, like besides those two characters don't play at all similar. So what if they have the same health and stuff? Like it just doesn't feel like an issue.
I was happy to see that Rowlet and Dartrix just throw their wings around, but that hairdo that Dartrix has, it's a bit
Yeah,
odd.
what is it? He goes from being like a soft round ball to an emo kid to
Well, he's like a little
Robin Hood
butler when he's in Dartrix. That's how I always saw him.
No, he's got like the emo bangs. I have them, so I know what those are. I did that.
Yeah.
But does it not turn into a little bow tie? Like, look at the posture, the posh eyes, and sort of signature look of superiority that we see in Dartrix. I always totally got the vibe that this is just a gentleman more than anything, but perhaps I've misread here. And I also had to look it up, by the way. Dartrix is the middle evolution. So we go from Rowlet to Dartrix to Decidueye.
Which really works for it being his emo phase,
Yeah.
right? He goes from being a cute little kid, hits his emo phase in the middle, and then he grows up and finds like his style as Bird Robin Hood.
Yeah, still,
I was gonna say, like, what is? Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the growth pattern there? Like, I expect most of those to be like, oh, they went through their emo phase and now they look like an office worker. But this guy just looks like he's at the Renfest in Decidueye.
He found his purpose as steal from the rich and give to the poor.
Yeah, I get you.
It was just a phase, Mom. Like he's done with it now.
Hey, let's chill for the Renaissance Fair. That's fun. As the abilities came together, did you all notice a trend, or at the very least, did you gravitate towards certain abilities?
Yeah, I think Mockery and I have the same one because you wrote it and then I highlighted it because I feel the same. Razor Leaf and Shadow Sneak. So I tried all combinations of his build. I tried all plants, all shadow, mixed him up, and I think those two are where it's at. This person that we're watching on the screen right now is using the big arrow. I don't remember the name of it, the one where it tethers them to the ground, and I straight hated that.
Spirit Shackle.
Yeah, I straight hated that. And maybe it would be better in a more organized comp. I don't know. But you already don't have a lot of mobility, so that it slows you while you're casting big arrow. Like you feel so vulnerable, and then you hit him with it and it feels like it does nothing. I was not about big arrow. Sorry, Octo Robin on the screen. Big arrow, not for me.
That was kind of how I felt about Leaf Storm. Like, I had a game where I locked Leaf Storm on accident, and I was like, oh boy, I gotta play with this now. And every time I would use it in fights, I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's doing anything. It feels like I'm sort of clicking my flashlight at them, and they're just gonna kind of go about life as usual. So
I agree. And that one with the little knockback, but when they're close enough to get that knockback, you are already dead. Like,
yeah, they're
or sorry, you are already knocked out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're already whispering in your ear, "Oh my womu shinderu." Like, it's just, you do not have much time left for this world when you're that squishy.
Nice reference. Well,
I will say
we can switch here to the enemy Rowlet, and they're doing a proper build, I believe. Continue, Margaret.
Okay. I will say, just to kind of take this from a bit of a different angle, this was the character, Decidueye, that really made me realize and just kind of appreciate how good the spell icon design is in Pokemon Unite. Like, I got to level 7 my very first time playing Decidueye, and I had to pick out which upgraded ability I wanted to use. And Razor Leaf popped up, and I don't know if you guys can see the Razor Leaf icon, but it looks exactly like what it does. Like, you have a little Decidueye silhouette shooting out auto attacks in all directions. And like, I just go through and I look at the different icons for this character, and they're all super intuitive. Like, you look at any of the individual abilities just based off the picture, having like, even by the time I played the character like twice, I could tell you what each one was and what the effect was. And that is actually like impressive visual design. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that, you know, maybe super strictly matters as much as the actual game design itself, but having intuitive ability icons that very quickly and super just easily understood formats of like, oh, I see just that tiny little picture and I know exactly what ability that is. I actually really like that a lot. I love any kind of visual clarity that we can get in a game. I love any kind of audio clarity that we can get in a game. And I've played a lot of games where you look at an ability icon and you have no idea what's happening. WoW, I did this all the time, where I'd be like, that's what's in that picture for WoW after so long. And I feel like I never have these moments with this game. Like, I just noticed it with Decidueye, and I've gone back and looked at a few of the icons, and they're really good in general. I feel like the actual like ability icon design is just so good in this game, and Decidueye is who made me realize that. So
Okay,
but I like it.
Okay, but his
But
starter ability, Astonish, for the icon is just a big exclamation point.
it's very Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah,
You know?
like it's just a big exclamation point. And then the ability, when he uses it, it just puts a big exclamation point above their head, just like, ah!
Yeah. And you play with that one time, and then you'll be like, what is that one? Oh, yeah, that's the one that does the exclamation point. Yeah. I know exactly what ability this is.
So funny. It's just a big exclamation point. Sound design, though, Razor Leaf, he sounds like a machine gun, and I really enjoy that.
It's so funny to me because when you have your boosted attacks, it fractures all of your attacks into a bunch of little small ones. And then Razor Leaf has you setting them out in all directions. So now you've just got this tiny little like on like 5 different people at the same time. And it just becomes this cacophony in your ears that just is just rattling all around. It's a lot of like weird clutter, but at the same time, there's something weirdly pleasing about it. You know, it just adds to that feeling of just absolutely gunning the enemy team just with your arrows. So I like it.
When we were watching our previous Masters player, there were 2 Decidueyes, one on each side, and it seemed like that our Spirit Shackle Decidueye had made a choice that they didn't want to get close to Absol or Slowbro or anything the enemy side had. So is there still, while we might favor a Razor Leaf Shadow Sneak build, is there still a place for Spirit Shackle like this? I'm not even gonna get close to them.
Well, I'm just saying, in that game we watched, the guy who took Spirit Shackle lost, and the guy who took Shadow Sneak won. So
that's true. That is true. In our test of 1, it did come out. I definitely saw more Shadow Sneak and Razor Leaf in total. There was a lot of spooky ghost owls hovering about.
You asked if there is a place for these abilities, and over time, what I've come to learn, especially in games as complicated as MOBAs, is that you really shouldn't rule things out. And stuff that seems like a total joke of a strategy today seems like incredibly obvious tomorrow. To the point where how could people not understand that this thing was OP yesterday? So I'm never gonna just say, oh, this has no place. This cannot be used. I am totally willing to entertain the possibility.
And often in MOBAs, there's kind of that, you've got your preferred build in your perfect situation, and yeah, you might be able to build in a different way to make up for it. But it sounds like Razor Leaf is just going to do so much raw damage that you're already on the back foot if you can't pick it, because you're basically saying I can't even interact with the enemy team in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, if you're hitting one extra enemy, that's doubling your auto attack damage output. Like, that's kind of absurd. And that's just if you're hitting one additional enemy, let alone factoring in the faster clear speed. So, yeah, I'm a little hard pressed to not pick Razor Leaf right now. Like you said, it's just so good.
What about items?
Items. Right now, I am currently running actually the exact same loadout that I have on Cinderace. And I actually don't even know if Decidueye's abilities can crit off the top of my head. But what I am running is Muscle Band, Scope Lens. That's why I mentioned the crits, because that's the crit modifier. Muscle Band, Scope Lens, and Buddy Barrier. I think that this is going to be a loadout that's really solid when you're auto attacking a lot and your ult is decent. Because auto attacks, no matter who you're playing, no matter what character you are in Unite, auto attacks can crit. And so when you have a character where a lot of their kit is focused around auto attacking, and with the Razor Leaf Shadow Sneak build, basically the entirety of your damage output, other than your ult, is in auto attacks, and thus almost all of your damage can crit, then Scope Lens turns out to be really good. And Muscle Band, of course. Muscle Band is such an insane item that it's good on a lot of non-auto attackers, let alone someone that's going to be putting out this many shots. So to me, Muscle Band is a no-brainer. Scope Lens makes a lot of sense with such a focus on auto attacking. Buddy Barrier, I just took as a sort of like, it's never really bad. And I'm not sure if there's anything that immediately jumps out at me as like something that I would super prefer to take that third slot. Because I think by that point, once you get past those first two items, then it's a little bit questionable in terms of what would contribute nearly as much to Decidueye's kit. But in general, that's my lineup that I'm running right now. And I think it makes a lot of sense just based on such a heavy auto attacker. Muscle Band, Scope Lens, Buddy Barrier. And I actually corroborated that with Kid Tans. I went to Kid Tans' channel, who is currently, I believe, the #1 ranked player, and spent a lot of last season ranked at #2, and he's running the same loadout right now as well.
I'm running the exact same build, so sorry to be boring.
No. Boring is good in a time of discovery.
Yeah, that's corroboration. That's not boring. That's adding more confidence.
Yeah, there we go. I definitely immediately put on Muscle Band. I put Buddy Barrier on literally everybody, and then Scope Lens. I'm pretty sure chat told me to, and I was like, yeah, sure, sounds good. And that's where I'm at, the exact same setup. So, woo.
Okay, so Scope Lens increased the damage of basic critical hits. The higher the Pokemon's attack, the more damage is increased. Oh, okay, cool.
I slapped one of those trial level 30 things on it because I still have one more even, but I still had one. And I was like, there we go. Rock and roll.
The temporary given item level 30 for a week.
Yeah, slap that on the Scope Lens and off we went.
Yeah, Scope Lens, I haven't looked into it too much, and I really should report back, but I believe Scope Lens is one of those items that continues to scale well past level 20, when a lot of other items don't. A lot of other items have very weak upgrades from levels 21 through 30, but Scope Lens effectively continues to empower its main effect through increasing, I believe, your crit rate, even with past level 20. Because past level 20, items only get increases in their secondary effect, not in their primary effect. And so for a lot of items, that secondary effect is just something that's nice to have, rather than sort of really augmenting the ability by a lot. But on Scope Lens, increasing your critical hit rate makes the main effect stronger because it makes your critical hits themselves hit harder. So Scope Lens, to my understanding, scales really well past 20 and is a good item to have for that. So that makes a lot of sense.
So the critical hits, but they have critical hit rate of 0. So why is Decidueye critting, or how?
So every character in the game, their auto attacks can crit.
Okay. It's just
it is the
Absol
abilities.
yeah.
What's up?
Absol just has a bonus crit rate.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, cool.
And so with Decidueye, especially with the meta build that's being run right now of Shadow Sneak Razor Leaf, literally all of your non-ultimate ability damage is auto attacks. Therefore, all of your damage other than your ult can crit. And your ult might even be able to crit. I don't know if it can off the top of my head, but even just taking away your ult, the rest of your damage, which is the vast majority of it, is crit capable. Therefore, Scope Lens is really, really good.
Oh, okay, interesting. You know, Unite Dash DB has gotten really good. That's a good website.
For sure.
I like what I'm seeing. Okay, cool.
I check it very frequently.
I was using Pokemon Unite GG for quite a while, which seemed to be definitely one of the better updated ones. But now this is looking nice. I'm gonna put that up on screen here. So you're right, and then we have so crit rate up to plus 6.0, damage goes up 12%. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So my my next question is this some sort of mad advertising scheme? Because the suggested items are getting kind of weird. I'm not sure I've ever seen the dumbbell suggested. I'm not
That
even.
would be the attack weight.
Yeah.
The suggested items are cursed. Never look at those.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, if you're ever going to the in-game held items to get suggestions on builds, you could just put the first two straight in the garbage. And you actually want to only look at the ones that are actually being used by competitive players, and not just whatever the company is putting in as the recommended items that have no sort of credibility, no backing by the higher rated players. Just assume that doesn't exist, because there's no real rhyme or reason to them, right? Like, a character who is this squishy, who has such little ability to escape, of course isn't going to get a lot of turn-ins, so attack weight's not going to do anything. Like just on its face, that immediately shows an attack weight, for those who don't remember off the top of their heads, is the item that gives you scaling attack damage off of your successful point turn-ins. So as a character that's not going to get a lot of turn-ins, that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, just throw those in the garbage. Ignore them.
Okay, and Skippy here in the chat is saying that there was some experimentation done by Team TTV where they were testing the attack weight to see if they could sort of scale it up, and maybe with a team that's capable. The recommended other item is a score shield, which seems absolutely insane.
yeah, it's like cursed. Like, literally a cursed set of items for this character. Just no. No. Can you score shield where you get the little shield and you can turn in and you can't be interrupted until the shield is broken? On such a squishy character, can you imagine just like running up with a score shield and you're like, I'm gonna do it, guys, I'm gonna turn in the middle of their team? Like, insanity.
I get it on paper because you often farm the jungle, you have so many points, it's driving you nuts, points are laying on the floor, the Aeos energy, and you wish you could turn in, but you can't.
So just to clarify a little bit more on what Skippy is saying here in the chat during our live recording, they're talking about specifically using attack weight because of very high attack damage ratios on Decidueye. What that means is that some of Decidueye's abilities scale extremely hard off of attack damage, so if you can get away with stacking a lot of attack damage, that can lead to those abilities just scaling really, really high into dealing a lot of damage. It's certainly an idea that I think has merit and is worth trying. I just want to see what kind of compositions you're running and how the games are going that you would be able to consistently get a couple turn-ins off as Decidueye. I think that's something that seems to be a bit of a higher risk, maybe higher reward strategy. Especially if you're going for a build that would use Spirit Shackle rather than Razor Leaf, because Spirit Shackle it's the competitor to Razor Leaf and has a very high attack damage ratio, so that's, I imagine, why you would want attack weight, is to use the fact that Spirit Shackle scales so well off of attack damage. So this is like a such less auto attack focused playstyle for Decidueye, so of course naturally you drop the scope lens for the attack weight. But the circumstances are so different, and you depend on getting successful turn-ins, and you depend on running a different build. I'm certainly willing to acknowledge the possibility, especially when you have a specific environment that you know your teammates are compensating for certain weaknesses in your kit. Like I said, I'm not going to rule anything out, but I definitely would want to see those conditions through which this build, supposedly with attack weight Decidueye, is being taken. I would want to see how that actually plays out, because I feel like there's so many moving parts that need to sort of be established before I could definitively call that good or bad. But it's definitely an interesting thought.
It sounds really fun. Like the idea that you could, in a coordinated environment, get your heavies, your tanks, to get up there, kind of make a zone for you to go turn in. You know you're scaling out of your mind, or late game, everybody. And that's great. And maybe even in that way, you can drop the buddy barrier because you're playing so far back with your spirit shackle in this extreme distant way that you're not going to buff anybody anyway.
I'm all about experimenting, but when I hear all of this, I just wonder if the effort is worth what you're getting out of it versus just playing the character, quote unquote, normally, and you would get the same or more return than building this whole comp, this weird comp around this one item. It just seems like a lot of effort for no reason. Maybe it's great though. I don't know. It sounds like a lot.
That's fair.
There's always this interesting sort of prioritization weighing that you have to do as a competitive player, especially a competitive player in a MOBA, where you have to weigh out what's worth practice time and what's not. And so with how short the Unite matches are and how relatively simple their kits are compared to other MOBAs, it wouldn't surprise me if it is easy enough to maintain a decent sized roster that you don't need to spend as much practice time maintaining the meta stuff, and you afford to have enough time to get more experimentation in. Because after all, in 1 hour, you can very easily get 5 matches. And that's not really something that we can say for any other MOBA. Even in Heroes of the Storm, the MOBA that has quick matches, and I don't mean the mode quick match, I mean the matches are short. You're only getting like 2 games in an hour, whereas in Unite you can very often get 5 games in an hour. So if the games are faster and the characters themselves are easier, then that could leave you with more overall time to just kind of mess around and see, hey, does this work? Does this not? If it doesn't, oh well, like we're doing perfectly fine. I think you would have more hours proportionally to be able to try out goofy stuff. And if it doesn't work, well, at least you tried.
That's a good point. And that's why I was kind of asking there at the top, are they fun to lose on? Because you do go through these games so quickly and can often amass tilt a lot quicker too, in that way. Such as I have been off Blizzy for about 2 weeks and mostly doing a lot of Blastoise because I find him still enjoyable to put up a good fight on. Any parting thoughts on Decidueye here?
Fun bird.
Feels really weird.
Yeah, that's true though. It does feel really weird. And I don't know what feels weirder, just standing still and like letting it fly, or actually trying to aim the thing when you can move it. Like maybe that's one that's better on mobile, but on Switch with your stick, I don't know, man. That's something.
Oh, we're talking about knock.
Yeah.
The ability, the static still. I just feel that being able to adjust your aim of where all those arrows coming out is the kind of ability that seems like it would feel really good with a mouse. Being able to say, I want to send all my arrows towards my mouse, and I move my mouse on the screen and it'll go towards the arrows. Having to do that from your character using an analog stick feels a lot more awkward, especially because it doesn't feel like it doesn't exactly trace your analog stick, if that makes sense. There's a bit of a delay between adjusting your analog stick and the adjustment of Decidueye's actual aim. So between it being already a kind of awkward medium to control the ability through and a little bit of delay, it just feels really slippery and strange. It's one of my least favorite parts of the character right now. But at least it's got ridiculously long range, so it doesn't seem to be a huge problem. But I think if I had to change one thing about Decidueye, it would be a different ult for sure.
Is it probably intentional though, right? Like often we see a radii effect like that that's delayed because it would be too powerful if they made it snappy.
Yeah, it's, and I understand why, you know, I could see if it was like too strong if you were just able to track people perfectly. And they probably don't want you to be able to just, keep the beam trained on one guy, but rather the ability to lay suppressive fire down over a set of terrain so as to secure a boss, so as to prevent a retreat, any of that good stuff. You know, that makes a lot of sense. It does mean the ability still feels really weird to use, though. Every time I have to ult into Decidueye, you know, like that's kind of how I feel about it, right? Is I look at other characters and I'm like, oh boy, I get my ult, and then Decidueye, I'm like, I guess I should use this. Like, I guess I have to ult. It's a very different feeling. But hey, it gives you the ability to contribute from range at least, which is good.
Kaya Bears, you were going to hit us with one word.
Was I? I think I forgot what I was going to say. The only times I felt good using it were like rare occasions when, like Makaru was saying, suppressive fire. Like we're fighting at Dreadnought and I can be really far back and then just lay this beam down over the whole Dreadnought region and nobody wants to stand there. Or my team's fighting at a turn-in and I can just lay it over the whole score area. And it's like, now you can't stand there for a second. But other than that, like in team fights where you're like actively participating and because you can't move when you're doing it, so it's really dangerous to stand completely still and cast the thing. I also had a couple times where I straight up used it and then immediately canceled it just because I wanted the buddy barrier.
That makes sense. Playing right into our squishiness we discussed.
That does actually make a lot of sense. Yeah, I can totally see there being duels where you just need the shield and the shots are probably going to miss, so you might as well just get the shield and drop it. That makes a lot of sense. I like that.
Also, a note to last episode, we were talking about some interesting things that might happen with the upgrades to the various abilities. That was a typo on the data mine there. So that was not the issue. We spent some time talking about like, wouldn't it be cool if like certain abilities upgrade at the same time and there was like this power spike that exists. Was not the case.
Dang, typo ruined our whole episode. What the heck?
I know, man.
No, it gave us content, guys. You're viewing this from such a pessimistic view.
That's a good point.
Can't help it. That's how I am.
In the modern age of content, at least 75% of what you post has to be pure speculation about something that will never come to light, all right? If you're not out here making clickbait thumbnails about something that couldn't reasonably ever be expected to happen, are you really playing the content game in 2021?
Got a point.
I don't actually believe that, to be clear.
Speaking of content and thumbnails, Kyle Ferguson, that Final Fantasy video you put out today.
Yeah?
That's just that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're playing the game over there.
A really nice picture of you. That's really great. Photograph.
Thank you. Clearly, my shocked face on the YouTube thumbnail was the only reason people would possibly click that image. Yeah. Well, you know, you got to play the game. Speaking of playing games, sort of, you should support us for Pokemon Unite over at Aeos Clubhouse, patreon.com/Aeos Clubhouse, where you can support this fine show and the host therein. We'd like to thank this week Nettle for joining us over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Aeos Clubhouse. Now, there was an announcement after we talked last week about a bit of esports that Japan is going to have its own tournament. It's going to be broadcast live on YouTube. This is a translation, so it's going to be a little odd, but it says, Day 1 online tournament for Pokemon Unite Winter Tournament will be held from December to January, meaning you can sign up on December 4th, and it'll play on Sunday, December 5th. There's going to be an application process. It'll also be live broadcast as YouTube, as we mentioned. So there is an official business going down with the Pokemon Unite.
What did we say on Twitter? I was like, Spite esports, is that what somebody said, that they
was-
did it
Yes.
just to spite us? And I'm like, I'm okay with spite esports, like that's fine.
I just love that throughout the show, since like I think the first episode, I've been talking about like, guys, it's Nintendo. We don't know what to expect with their side of esports, but don't expect a lot. And then we get over here, and all of a sudden, Nintendo's like, hey guys, we're going to officially support the Smash scene in North America. And it's like, oh, what's going on here? Okay. So I don't know. It's always so interesting. And I feel that just speaks to the absolute unpredictability of the scene as we stand right now.
Yeah, I am more than happy to be wrong and be proven wrong by Nintendo in that regard, because that wasn't like a statement I was making like joyously, right? When I'm like, yeah, Nintendo hates esports, woo! Like that's like was a sad, like resigned, like POV where it's like, yeah. So I am happy that they seem to be pushing themselves more into the esports scene and being more open to it. Like, heck yeah, never been happier to be wrong.
You must be at least 16 years old or older. Let's see here. There is software being used, the latest version of Nintendo Switch or a smartphone using Pokemon Unite. So you can have either one. We talked a little bit about that in the past.
That's really cool and interesting. We talked about that long ago about what format would be allowed for tournaments, because not many games allow you to use like whatever, like they'll pick one platform, you know what I mean? Like think like Fortnite, which is you can play on anything. You can play it on a toaster, a computer, an Xbox, a phone, like you can play it on anything. But when they do tournaments, they have everybody play on like the same machine. So it's kind of interesting that they allow choice, Nintendo here.
I actually had a thought the other day, and it's that when you're playing on mobile, if you want to look at a specific part of the map, you can just tap that part of the map with your finger and your camera instantly moves there. And we don't have an exact comparison for that in the Switch version, where you have to drag your camera away from your current location. And so I was wondering to myself the other day, I was like, would it not be optimal to have one player on a phone on whoever's pool matches up best with mobile controls, like whoever's characters still function really well on mobile controls, maybe even better. And that person is the designated map checker, because they can do it more efficiently than everybody else by just tapping straight to what they want to see on the map and being able to very efficiently make callouts about any time you see anything being taken around the map. They're calling out Dreadnought starting, Zapdos starting right away. Like, and I know being able to very quickly say, oh, they just started Zapdos right now as soon as they did it, or they just started the boss right now, that informs so much about what the enemy team is doing. So I guarantee you at least some competitive teams have thought about it, and then there's been a lot of precedent for that in the past history of esports, that you have someone whose job it is to watch the map. They're not neglecting the rest of their responsibilities, but they are specifically the map checker. And the fact that we have a platform that makes it easier to check the map, I really suspect that at least one team is going to try using a mobile player as their sort of vision guy. I think it's an interesting idea.
Interesting. What'd be really interesting is if both are available and constantly swap between. Like, you're like, okay, this match, I'm going to play this certain Pokemon, but that's way better on mobile, so I'm going to switch off. And they're just constantly going between the two platforms.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely see it. I can say, as someone that has organized a lot of tournaments in my time, that sounds like an absolute pain. It sounds like something that I wouldn't want to bother dealing with, is people shuffling around constantly. Mm-hmm. But if tournament organizers felt like they could handle it, then sure.
One thing I have noticed working in esports, if you allow it, it will happen. Like if there's no rule specifically prohibiting, it doesn't matter what the action is, even, it does not matter. But if there's not a rule specifically saying you cannot, players will. They will do it, anything.
And even if you do, so I remember there was specifically a rule. I'm not going to get too much into the weeds about it, but there was specifically a rule in a Heroes of the Storm competition where it said, if you do this thing, you cannot participate in the league for the rest of that season. And multiple competitive players that I talked to were like, oh, that's not against the rules. There's just a punishment for doing it. They, like, literally, that was like the stance of the pro players was, no, that's legal. There's just there's a certain punishment for it, but it's not against the rules. And so
weird.
if the behavior wasn't mentioned in the rules at all, then according to these players, it's not against the rules. And if there is a punishment for doing it, well, then it's not against the rules. There's just a trade-off that you have to take. And so
yeah, it's like the Airbud clause, right? There's no rule saying a dog can't play basketball. Like that's literally how esports operate. Like people are like, oh, that's so silly in Airbud. No, it would happen. There would be a golden retriever playing like at League Worlds. Like I believe it.
Oh my goodness, this is a real thing. I mean, it's a term, but this is great. I didn't know Airbud clause was a thing.
Yeah, that's the whole basis of Airbud is that there was no specific rule saying a dog couldn't play.
Yeah, well, he had to get away from that clown. You know, it's a good story. It's a happy tale of success. This is being organized on Discord, actually, which is kind of an interesting note of our modern times. You must have internet connection, obviously, but the entire thing will be conducted via Discord.
That's pretty neat.
Cool.
You know, Discord, big thing. It's like a central pillar of gaming community now. I remember when Discord didn't exist.
Yeah, I was using Burst Voice with all my friends before I used Discord back in the day.
I was a stubborn Ventrilo user until
I
Discord.
got around. I was on Vent, I was on Mumble, TeamSpeak, Curse Voice, Skype. I was trying whatever. And everybody had a different thing, you know? It's like, oh, hey, I'm going to join this group, and all these people use BattleNet chat, and all these people use Skype, and these people use Discord, and it's just like, so it's so interesting, right? Like the sort of singularity of everybody coming to Discord is really, really nice, in that it's extremely functional software, and it's just so convenient to have everybody in the same place. But you always worry whenever one entity gets too big, right? Because then they can start to get away with some behavior purely based off the fact that you're not going to leave the place that has all the people on it. A lot of people are on Facebook that would immediately go to an alternative to Facebook right away. So, you know, I'm always a little worried whenever one social media platform starts to get too big, but I can't deny that it's certainly got some conveniences that were not present even like 5 years ago that just make everything so much easier to coordinate in the gaming sphere.
When I started podcasting, we still had a forum. You had to register. In fact, I rated in BFA, World of Warcraft, in a Ventrilo server. I thought that was weird then.
Wow.
Yeah, that would have been weird. That's a long holdout for Vent.
They were paying for events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were.
When Discord was a thing. I don't know. Does it at least have more like uptime? Are you not worried about like weird server issues? I guess I don't know. Like you get what you pay for.
I don't know. It felt dated then, but you know it was tradition.
You know what they're paying for? You know how Ventrilo had the thing when you joined a channel, you had like an audio, like you could make your name like. With Discord, we don't get my Rafflecopter goes soy, 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 like we used to on Vent. Like that's gone forever. There are people who will never know about my Rafflecopter and what noise it makes. So maybe they just can't give up Vent for that right there.
I mean, it's our fault. I checked the box that says no text to voice in Discord.
Oh,
so
no.
I guess we could have it. We just choose not to.
This just takes me back all of a sudden. I had totally forgotten about this, but early in my streaming career, I had a channel in my Discord that was just called TTS Allowed Here Go Nuts. Was what it was. And if you wanted to hear the text to speech, you could go to that one little corner. And if you didn't, it wasn't anywhere else. For very good reason.
My favorite one on old Vent, besides the Rafflecopter, was the one that just sounded like a sprinkler, where it was like it just sounded like a sprinkler going. Those were the best of times, truly.
I'm gonna keep this incredibly relevant to Pokemon Unite as it has been for a while here. And no, I'm still totally taking it off the rails. But if you want good text to speech, you got to play Moonbase Alpha or Sanctum 2.
Oh,
They
yes.
both use the exact same text to speech system where you can dictate the length and pitch of various words. And so people are actually out here making like the Imperial theme from Star Wars and making like entire sketches and whatnot and gags in that game. So that's what we should be moving toward, not away from. Text to speech is a treasure. All right, so we need more of that, but sadly, it's slowly getting phased out over time.
They took down the songs. It's so sad. There was this large collection on YouTube of all the songs from Moonbase, Rocket Man and Elton John song. It was fabulous, and they took them away. Copyright. It was too close to the real thing, apparently. What a tragedy. Moonbase is John Madden. Love it.
Whoever made all those TTS songs had a weird obsession with John Madden all the time. Yeah, like you said, he just gets referenced all the time, and I'm like, what is their deal?
Love it. Fabulous stuff.
What's going on in Unite?
Well, there was a Reddit post this past week about, do you want to climb in solo queue? Well, I've got a tip for you. And it ended up being almost entirely psychology. So this is interesting to go over all the same. I was excited to open this up. It got a lot of votes this week, ended up near the top. But, oh man, a solo queue. Okay, what's the tips? What's the tips? Well, it basically comes down to things you've heard in other MOBAs. May have not heard them if this is your first MOBA. Basically, mindset. It's all about mindset. And when you feel like people are throwing, your enemy team has the exact same pool of players as you do. And oftentimes you must become the cheerleader or at least some sort of voice of direction using pings and whatnot to help your team mobilize in such a way. And don't pay too much attention to your losses and victories, because over your ratio, if you're staying positive and playing well, you'll go up.
Yeah, I think that what really marked a lot of my climb, and I say this as someone that started out a very average player in MOBAs for a very long time. My first few years of playing MOBAs, which also makes me feel so old to think I've been playing MOBAs for like 10 years now, closer to 8. My first few years of playing MOBAs, I was about silver in every game that I played, and I played League of Legends, Dota, and Heroes of the Storm, and I was roughly where silver is in all three of those. And what really made the shift for me was swapping into a different mindset. And after I did, I just like climbed like a rocket and was able to dominate in like all the MOBAs that I play, at least especially relative to where my old position was. So I definitely think that it makes a lot of sense for that kind of advice to be psychological, especially because psychological advice about what you should be taking away from the game is stuff that can apply from game to game. Whereas, if you give someone meta advice about like, oh, play this character, do this thing, pick this item, those aren't necessarily making them play any better. Players aren't making smarter decisions. They're not understanding more about drafting, about timings, about matchups. They're just picking better items, which is certainly a part of playing better, but you need better decision making overall. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to have something that actually focuses on improving you, and something that's worked so well for me to focus on mindset. I can't speak too much to this exact person's posts, but I do like approaching things from a psychological level, because that's what worked for me.
And something I've heard many, many times before when it comes to competitive games, and I think is even more important in short games like Pokemon Unite, is measure yourself in every 10 matches rather than 1. So set yourself up for a gauntlet, an evening of games, and then go back and think about it when you enjoyed yourself and look at it as a whole picture rather than the individual games, particularly if you're not at a level where you can actually deduce what happened in that individual game. So if you're playing, you don't know every enemy ability, there were things you didn't understand that you saw, you're not going to be able to actually take that one game and make it an interesting experiment for yourself. And oftentimes avoiding tilt is saying, that's interesting, rather than that was infuriating. and finding the curiosity in the learning of that moment.
Yeah, it's very much the second you start to get frustrated and be like, oh, this is BS, is when you stop thinking about how to handle it better. And there is certainly a time and a place to just get upset that something is imbalanced or frustrated when things keep not going your way. But if you truly are invested in getting better, some of your mental energy should be going, if not the vast majority of your mental energy, should be going to what you can do better. And I always tell people, and this was the big mindset shift that I was talking about that really made me get a lot better at MOBAs. Currently the only game genre I'm good at right now, I would say, except maybe Rocket League. But the mindset shift that happened for me was just, hey man, if your teammates make 99 mistakes and you make one mistake, guess which one matters in the long run, right? Like, guess which one, identifying it and rectifying it and changing it, guess which one is actually going to make you more likely to climb? It's that one. Like, if you have someone else, and this applies a lot more to games with text chat, but it still shapes where your mental and emotional energy should go. If you have someone on your team that's making mistakes, does thinking about that help you at all, other than what should I do to compensate for this mistake? How should I handle this mistake? Like, no, it doesn't do anything. If you try to tell that person what they're doing wrong, are you going to get through to them? Probably not. Are you just going to tilt them? Very likely. If they actually hear what you're saying, are you even going to be right about what you're complaining about? Because a lot of what people complain about MOBAs and what their teammates are doing wrong isn't even right in the first place. And so the chances that simultaneously you have correctly identified mistakes in your allies, and it is productive to think about them, and you have efficiently communicated the problem that you have with your teammates, and they have actually heard you, and they've understood it all, and they've actually implemented it into their play, all of that is so unlikely. And even if you go through all these different steps and all these checks, congratulations, you have now improved a different player, and you have not helped your climb at all. So even, except maybe in that individual game, like if you can very efficiently be like, I need you to do this one thing differently in this game, and they do it, boom, you've increased your climb by actually affecting your own win rate here. But I just think that players spend so much mental and emotional energy on something that just, when you really take a step back and look at the chances that it'll work out and the chances that it'll increase their climb, all their priorities are in the wrong place. You, in the long run, are the only person that matters. Losses are going to be inevitable. You can have a 70% win rate. You're still losing 3 out of every 10. So you have to emotionally be able to handle your losses, and you have to not really care what everybody else is doing, because none of that will help you climb. And if you only think about yourself and take every single situation to say, I know that was BS, I know that my teammates could have played that better, I know that this or that happened, literally none of that matters though. What could I have done better? The second you start really genuinely implementing that is when you start to improve. And then you also have to just pair that with volume. You need to play a lot of a game. I think with almost any skill in the world, you need to do a lot of the thing as just a critical, necessary component to get better. And so I think that what worked out for me was just getting a huge volume of games and just really taking a look at myself and just being like, nobody else matters. I just want to do better. I do those two things, boom, high rank near instantly. I think other people should do that too.
Kyberry,
I am always just endlessly surprised. Sorry, I just jumped in.
Yeah, that was
Jumped right in.
Perfect.
I mean,
Endlessly
several minutes
surprised.
straight, you're good.
Endlessly surprised how many people will play video games angry, and these kind of like psychology things and managing tilt to me sound like, like that's, like a no-brainer. But then I play games with people, and so many people I play with are straight up angry all the time. Like they've progressed past tilt and are in this just realm of like violently angry all of the time when playing games. And we talked about in a previous episode about like being mad enough to throw a controller and how that can happen, or that happens rarely. But I see so many people who are in that state of being like constantly. And like, that's bad, man. I don't know how you think you're going to win games or just like function in general when that's your like default state of being just like furious. and those people who we can't type in Unite, which is a great thing because we've seen in other MOBAs what people will communicate to each other when they're in this state of just like unbridled rage in video games. So I don't know if the people who need to read a post like that are the ones who are reading it, but I certainly hope that I do, because yeah, it's like extremely common in MOBAs in general to have a terrible mindset, and the level of like self-sabotage is off the charts.
I'm just imagining if we could type and just seeing people mid-game with their controller, moving letter by letter through the on-screen keyboard. And just typing GG noob team takes like a solid 30 seconds. Like
they would do it though. They would
They
would absolutely do it, like the commitment.
Yeah, like you would see a guy who's just been sitting in base for the past 90 seconds, jungle fully spawned, everything needing to be farmed, multiple bosses taken, and they're typing in the chat, wow, so you just let me die on that gank?
Right.
It's like, dude,
right.
Let's go.
In our own MOBAs with keyboards, we go, oh, look at them, they're typing. Look at that typer, something's big coming, because you see them take a slight break in mid lane, what have you. And yeah, it would be disastrous here in this game with this game length.
I still think one of the videos that really solidified me feeling like text input on a keyboard or on a controller is so bad is I still remember seeing this YouTube video of someone speed running typing happy birthday on an Xbox 360 controller, and it takes them a good amount of time. And I was like, man, this is inefficient. Like, I can't even imagine trying to do that. Like, it was to the point where I remember my brother specifically when we were growing up, one of my brothers had like a little snap-on keyboard that you could like plug into the bottom of your Xbox 360 controller so that you could actually type like normal.
Oh God. Oh no.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't see that anything good coming from that.
I don't know, man. It was funny because like then, somebody takes you out in Call of Duty and you could just be sitting here writing up this whole novel while you're dead. It's an interesting system, but I'm very glad that we do not have text chat in this game for sure. I think that the ping system, we could look at it a little bit and definitely change it in some of the pre-draft messages, but not having text chat in any capacity, except for friends that you've played at least 5 games with, is definitely a very good aspect of Pokemon Unite.
Did you ever get to see this gem on the GameCube that was a full keyboard with the controller to the left and right side?
Oh my God, I just want one of these to type on, like as just my keyboard.
How heavy would that thing be? Like, that would be like, you could like kill a puma with that thing.
Yeah, it's a weapon.
It's huge. There's a shield. That's not a keyboard.
Someone's like, "Oh man, I threw my controller." Keys flew everywhere. I broke a window.
What was it for? What game?
A Phantasy Star.
Was that made? Okay.
Phantasy Star Online,
okay.
Which
okay, all right.
Well, now you got to tell us about Phantasy Star.
Oh, well, Phantasy Star. Oh, jeez, these were during game subscription times, so I could never play it online.
Yeah, tell me about the before times, Grandpa.
Yeah, it was a long time ago when I asked my parentals when I was maybe 15 if I could get an online subscription. And they said, I'm not taking my credit card anywhere near the internet.
Wait, they had credit cards back in the 60s?
Yeah, it was more of a
back when you were 15, Kyle.
Yeah, no, it was more of a sigil, if you will, a stone with odd runes on it, but it worked as monetary transactions.
Gotcha. And then, yeah, you're right. They changed all of the sales and everything, and they would update the shops whenever their sundial said that it was time to do so.
Exactly. It was, Stone. That's how we got Stonehenge in the first place. Moving on to emails. Mo Money Mo Momos asks, can you justify playing well with a team and having a low goal score? Playing well, in quotes, more relating to staying with the team, controlling objectives, and overall being where I needed to be.
Yes, that is the easiest answer I think I've given to a question on the show so far. Easy, yes. Playing well is literally just simply a matter of how much did you help your team win the game. And you do not need to be the specific person putting points in the goals to have had a massive impact on helping your team win the game. I know that the in-game sort of MVP score calculator very heavily swings based on how many points you turned in, but in reality, there's so much you can do in a MOBA that will never show up in a stat sheet, and good play is never accurately represented within, especially not within any individual single number score that tries to reflect your performance. Especially if you're playing a character that has a very hard time turning in points. I've had plenty of games where I'm playing Cinderace. I'm super far back. I'm auto-attacking at max range the entire time. I am successfully ganking out the wazoo. I am getting everybody down. And it turns out that everywhere I go, I tend to be the last person to turn in, and I tend to be turning in the least. Even with that, I still secure multiple bosses. I'm still getting in critical ult timings, all of that stuff. It's such one part of the game that really just, if you can turn in a lot of points without playing super well, you can turn in barely any points while having secured the victory and stolen multiple last hits on bosses and gotten several successful ganks and zoned people out. Like, I would much rather have a Blastoise that successfully surfs the enemy team away from Zapdos while my team secures it, just to give an example, than a Blastoise that turned in an extra 70 points or whatever. But the Blastoise that turned in the extra 70 points is going to look way better on the MVP score and is going to have higher numbers on the scoreboard. So the amount of points that you turn in does not equal the amount of good play that you had and how well you contributed. So absolutely, yes, 100% you can justify playing well with the team and doing lots of great stuff while not having a lot of points turned in.
Big same, right? I play so much Eldegoss. Like, I am often the lowest scoring person on my team as well. Even, there are times where we win Dreadnought and then we go up to that bottom tier 1 and have a little fight there while we have our Dreadnought shields, and then everybody's turning in. Not everybody is going to get to turn in. There's not enough score on that score zone, and while my teammates are turning in, I'm often healing them back up, right? I still have buttons I can press and get you guys healed back up. We're going to move into the jungle and we're going to move up to Rotom now. So am I going to try to stand on the turn in and turn in with everybody else at the same time and see whose points gets in and who doesn't? Or am I going to use my abilities and keep healing while we're all standing there?
Yeah, and funnily enough, just to give you a very quick example that demonstrates the inability of the score metric to accurately reflect how well you played, let's say, for example, that you and a teammate both walk up to a goal. You have 50 points. Your teammate has 1 point. There's 1 point remaining on that goal. If your teammate turns in, they are denying the team 49 potential points by taking out the goal before you can get there. And so if your teammate goes and turns in that 1 point, their stats on the scoreboard look better, even though they're greatly harming the game overall and they're greatly harming their team's chances to win. So their stats are going up for making their team less likely to win the game. And your stats are going down for something that literally you did not do. So I think right there that just immediately goes to show how flawed the capabilities of stats like that are in reflecting how well someone played. Like, stats are never a whole picture. They are merely supplementary. They merely provide information, but they need to be put in context. And so, just play your way. Like, play, do what you're supposed to be doing. And if you didn't turn in because other people got to the turn-ins before you did, and you're playing a character that can't be aggressive on those turn-ins, but you're still helping your team win the game, then there's no issue at all.
We talked about one with Decidueye today. Probably not going to be turning in a lot, doing a lot of other important things like lots and lots of damage. Captain Ineptitude asks our next question and our final question of the day. How would or do you guys change your play if you have someone AFK at the start of a game? Do you try to play riskier since you're likely to lose the big team fight?
Oh boy. So are they just late to the game, or are they completely AFK and they're going to be a bot later? I mean, I'm always going to still try my best to win, and I don't know if I've ever won a game in this game with a DC'd person and a bot, but I have in other MOBAs where you've had a bot and you ended up being able to pull out the W. But the vast majority of the time, if somebody is truly and completely AFK and they don't come back, you're not going to win. I'm not saying don't try your best. If that's what your team wants to keep doing, sometimes people want to surrender in games like this where you can surrender. But you're at a severe disadvantage when you're playing with a bot or playing 4v5 where somebody is just completely absent. I don't know if playing riskier is going to solve that problem.
Yeah, I think it's just so vague that it's a little hard to answer because, like, just to give you a quick example, am I playing Lucario? Okay, Lucario can hold down a solo lane, and a lot of times Lucario is the backbone of the 1-1-3 strategy where he's solo laning top so as to allow a tri-lane in bottom lane. So if I'm Lucario, then sure, I probably can get by just fine having a solo lane. If I'm Blissey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a really hard time doing that exact same thing. So I feel that it is a little too vague to answer in the majority of cases, and that it's going to differ so heavily case by case. I do think that you should play with the knowledge that you're going to consistently be down a person. So, and what that specifically changes in how you play depends super hard on context. And you should definitely take it into account and consider it in every decision that you make, that you're always 4v5. But what exactly the change that will be, I cannot say.
I definitely have a pretty big change when this happens, but that's because I am doing a thing called limit testing, which is a really fancy way of saying, can I 1v1? And I'll use the knowledge later, maybe. This game is perhaps thrown, but is now a learning opportunity. And so as long as we're, before Dreadnought, there's this sort of point in the game where I'm going to say, this is the end point where, things are now awry because we're missing a person. But for the early game, let's go see if I can cover that jungle on Blissey. Let's see if Squirtle can 1v1 the enemy Lucario. No? Well, I learned something today that I will use in a future match.
Should always be doing that. Like, that's one reason why I don't like surrendering too, because even in losing games, you can always learn something and you can always look at your own play and be like, okay, what could I have done better in that team fight? And sometimes the answer is nothing and that you were just going to lose. But at least for me, very often I can look at my own play and be like, yeah, I could have pushed these buttons better. I should have done this. My positioning, I was too far forward or I was too far back. So even in losing games, there's something to be gained, like some knowledge to be gained there, some value to be gained there.
And it's such a powerful word change up, because you could say you were fooling around, you were throwing, but now we're limit testing. This is
I love limit testing. It's a good phrase.
Thank you all for your emails. That brings us to the end of the show. You can find more about the show over at KyleFerguson.com, where you can find all the links to the show, the RSS feed should you want to plug it into a certain podcatcher, but you can find the show across the web wherever podcasts are found. And be sure to support the show over at patreon.com/Aeos Clubhouse. The show will always be free, but you can support it there with your hard-earned dollars, and we very much appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who supported the show so far. Let's send it over to Kaya Berries. Where can you be found on the internet?
Hi, hello. I can be found anywhere at Kyeberries, K-I-Y-E Berries, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, all those good places. Hope to see you guys out there on the intertubes. Mockery, how about you?
Hello. My big three that I can be found on are Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find me at Mockery TV, MOCHRIE TV. What about you, Kyle?
You can find me at Kyle Ferguson on Twitter.
Ferguson, you say?
Yeah, it's a good name, Ferguson.
Son of Fergus?
Mm-hmm.
And given that you are son of Fergus, each of which having an S in their words, would that combine to make a totality of 2 S's?
That is correct. Otherwise, I'd be son of Fergu, and that is not who I am. You can also find links over there to the Final Fantasy video we're talking about, or you can go to youtube.com/AMoveTV for Nexus Gaming Series, the channel where I'm covering Final Fantasy 14 right now and having a wonderful time doing that. I know Mockery's been streaming some of that too, so it's going around right now.
Yep, they've infected me. All the Final
Going
Fantasy 14
around like it's the common cold. It's the cat girl cold. You guys caught it.
I play a Rogadin. I'm a big, strong man in Final Fantasy. I'll have you know, I'm not a cat girl, but there are many running around.
It's true. It's true. They're rather populous, but thank you all for joining us here for Aeos Clubhouse and our Pokemon Unite talk. Have yourself a lovely weekend. We'll see you soon.